Welcome to Grace Among Us, the podcast where we unearth the many faces and places of grace and share stories of the power of grace in our human lives. Our desire is that this will inspire you to see grace in your own life and share it with others.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're hearing this. My name is Carrie Richard. I am a mindset coach. I help people make space and enjoy the ride, especially those high achievers out there. And I am here today with my dear friend, Ebony Gilbert, and I bet you all can guess what we're going to talk about. So, hi, Ebony.
Hello, Carrie. How are you?
Oh, great. How
Fantastic. I'm good. I'm ready to talk about grace. Let's talk about it.
Awesome. Who are you, Ebony?
I am Ebony C. Gilbert. I'm from a small town in Florida, North Florida, called Fernandina Beach. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I work in the healthcare industry. And then I try to find time to talk about grace as much as possible.
I love it. So, Ebony, we had started this conversation before we hit record, and we're talking about purpose. And, it's kind of a buzzword these days. Find your purpose. Do you know your purpose? Are you living your purpose? And there's many schools of thought around purpose of like, if I'm living my purpose, like everything is unicorns and rainbows, or doors are flying open, or it's, if it's not I hear this, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And there's a lot of, focus on how to be intentional, I think is another way of saying it. Here's this other school of how to be intentional. And we're in the middle, I'm going to say a lot of words for a minute. We're in the middle of a very noisy existence. With cell phones and notifications. And, when I started work, we typed letters on a typewriter. We put it in an envelope and we put it in the mail, and then we waited. And now we get thousands of these messages a day. So I think there's a lot of need, or a lot of hunger, or a lot of desire for this groundedness of purpose. So,
groundedness of purpose. I agree with you.
So I'm going to tee up a question for you.
Okay.
So let's look through grace glasses at purpose. Because I find that purpose is not comfortable. It doesn't always feel good. So I'd love to talk about that and see what your thoughts are.
I agree that it doesn't always feel good. And, not the first, but somewhere near number one. First thing you want to do is, once you get really uncomfortable, is I don't belong here. This isn't the right place I'm supposed to be in. This isn't the right space I'm supposed to be in, because it shouldn't feel this way. And I think at this point in my life, I know enough and I've seen enough to know that it's not congruent with real life at all. And it's easier. So there's focus and there's priority, right? We're talking about this at work right now. It's easy to focus on the thing that feels good, or in some situations, the thing that feels the worst. You go to the extreme. You focus on the extreme thing, the outlier, right? And you make that the priority. But what if the thing you should be making the priority is purpose at all times? Whether it feels good, doesn't feel good, whether it's uncomfortable, comfortable. And I don't see that as being your choice. That's what you're called to do. And we take it upon ourselves to choose where we want to focus our attention on based on how we feel. That was a lot of words I just used. We're going to use a lot of words today. So
we're circling the wagons. I think
purpose is the mandate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Purpose is the mandate. That is the default priority. Everything else we may or may not choose based on where we want to place our focus, based on how we feel in the moment. I dare to say that Jesus was pretty uncomfortable on the cross.
I don't think he was I know he wasn't real happy about it.
He didn't feel good. But what greater purpose?
I like what you said about, um, it's not it's a calling. Like my purpose here, I didn't make up. I
Yeah,
didn't make up
you
my
didn't do it.
calling. Mm-mm. No, and it found me, but I have to listen for it. And, we are in the world of instant gratification, ultimate convenience. I can sit here and I can order pretty much anything I want, and I live in the country. Anything I want, and at some point in the next day or two, it'll be sitting at my doorstep.
And if you pay a premium, you could probably get it in 2 hours.
I'm in the country, but I've lived in those places. I have lived in those places where
Yeah,
I could get it like immediately, right? So we're in this landscape of, hey, if it doesn't feel good or if it's not working, like skedaddle, get moving, go
forget
do
this.
something else. And what happens is we get so scattered that there we're not being persistent with our purpose.
We're
And that
shifting the priority.
and although being on on purpose can be uncomfortable, the discomfort comes from the growth within it, and it also is like directly in proportion to the joy that can come with it. So for anybody who is has they know what their purpose is, or they're getting real familiar with what they're being called to do and it gets uncomfortable, please stick around.
Don't run.
Like, stay for the rest of the show, literally stay for the rest of the podcast, but also in a bigger perspective, stay,
Yeah.
stay on purpose. So, you brought up some other, like, 2 other P's that were interesting. So, protection and provision, and we can get really caught up in trying to do those things ourselves, like protecting ourselves from things that are uncomfortable. And provision, meaning I got to go out and get it. I got to go get mine.
I got to make it happen.
Exactly. And the grace is remembering that it's not all you.
It's not
It's
about you.
this isn't I do it myself. Now that's not to say that you don't put feet on your faith and move, take action. Guided steps, we talk about that too.
All the time.
Yeah. But Ebony had a interesting story about, well, do you want to tell the story?
About the sheep. Yeah, sure. And this isn't, it's not an original story. Okay. Put that out there. I'm not taking credit for the story. It is real life. And I've heard others talk about it before, but it came to my mind this weekend. Um, Sheep have shepherds because sheep are not known to be the smartest animals. They're followers. They follow. They're not leaders. Okay. This is common knowledge. But sheep on the hillside of farming villages in the Middle East and throughout the world, they will wander off and do things that don't make a lot of sense. That's not intuitive to the well being of the animal, such as They will stick their head in a hole where snakes live.
That's no
Um,
bueno.
and there's not a sheep community where they have counsel and say, hey, don't do that anymore. They don't do that. And that may sound strange, but there are actually some animals who learn from other animals, right? Word spreads throughout the animals, and they say, oh, don't go over there. Elephants are notorious for having this kind of behavior, chimps, things of that sort. Well, sheep don't do any of that. So sheep will stick their head in a hole with a snake. So the shepherd knows this. The shepherd has observed the behavior of his sheep, and he knows that it's his job to protect and provide for his sheep. So what he does is he puts oil, a certain type of oil, on the face of the sheep. And this oil covers the face of the sheep. And then when the sheep sticks his head in the hole to see what's in the hole, we know what's in the hole. We know how the story ends. The snake doesn't come near the sheep because the snake is repelled by the oil on the face of the sheep. So now the shepherd has created a situation in which he is taking his observation of his flock of sheep, who he knows are going to behave in a way that's counter to their well being.
But in
And
their
he,
nature,
but
they're
in their nature, it's in their nature. They're not suicidal. The sheep are not suicidal. It's in
no,
their nature to do this thing, this
right.
behavior. Shepherd knows this. He puts the oil on their face. They put their and the sheep goes and knows exactly what he knows it's going to do. It sticks his head in his hole. The snake is repelled, and now the sheep is not harmed, even though it's doing behavior that would justifiably harm it. So the sheep has a purpose to follow. It's its job to follow the shepherd. It's going to do some other things along the way because it's in its nature. The shepherd has a job to provide and protect, which it did by putting the oil on the face of the sheep. So go with me here. We are the sheep. We are the sheep, and we're going to do things that are counterintuitive, and we're going to do things that could potentially be harmful, that we know is harmful. Maybe we don't know. We don't, who knows? It's harmful one way or another. And we have a shepherd who graces us with oil. And this oil protects us. And this oil keeps us out of trouble when we should get what we deserve by putting our head in that situation to begin with. And I was thinking about this, and I was uncomfortable with the fact that, are we just as simple minded as sheep? And I thought, if we're talking about how we compare to the great shepherd, yes, we are. Yes, we are. And it
Yeah.
is our job to follow the shepherd. And he does his job by protecting us and gracing us in situations where we should get what we deserve. And he graces us to not. He gives us mercy and grace and protects us. So if we do our job and follow him, he'll do his part and grace us through it. So no matter what hole you stick your head in, no matter what crap you get yourself into, the anointing, that anointing oil on your face, the presence of the shepherd will protect you through it. And you and I were talking about this before the call because there's situations in both of our lives, right? At any given moment in time, we're doing something like sticking our head in the hole.
Yes. Because it's our nature.
It's our nature.
Yes.
Or we're trying to
Curiosity.
be the one who's providing and making it work, or that we're trying to be the protector. And it's our job to stay on path and follow and stay in that purpose and then let him do the rest. And it helped me because there's a lot of pressure to protect and provide when that's not the role you're supposed to be in.
Yes. And that is like, if I'm doing those things, I am in doubt. I'm in doubt of what I'm doing, where I'm at, what's going to happen, what the future looks like. I'm sticking my head in a hole.
I'm
And
sticking my head in the hole.
yeah. And I love the idea, like when you were, I had no idea that they did that with sheep, with the oil. And what came to mind is the sheep don't know the purpose of that oil. nor do they need to, which is the exact same thing. Like, I don't have to understand. I don't have to understand how I'm being provided for, what the protection is. And most of the time, I can't understand. Like,
I don't need to.
there are things going on that I can't see, I can't understand. And when I am in my right place, in the process, in the whole picture, then all that protection, all that provision is available to me. And my place is to be on purpose and have faith that I am not I am not at the helm here. I want to add another P. You ready?
Let's do it.
Prevention.
Talk about it.
I stick my head in a hole when I try to prevent something. I think it's a form of protection. They could go together.
Good.
But there are times, fewer than there used to be, but I find myself saying something or acting something or not doing something in the hopes of preventing something from happening in the future.
How's that work out?
It never works out. And often I'm trying to think of an example because I have a feeling you may say, what's an example?
Oh, yeah, it's coming.
An example is saying something. I'm also trying to play God, which it's not my job.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, please.
How do you know when it's appropriate to say that thing or not to say it? Like, how do you differentiate between, I just got to get this off my chest,
Yeah.
and I'm being told to speak?
The difference is the motive. And I can feel it these days.
Okay.
If my motive is really, I just don't want this person to be mad at me, I need to keep my mouth shut. If it's, hey, I was hurt by that statement, or just to speak what so, it's different. Does that help?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Makes sense. So we have purpose, provision, protection, prevention,
Yeah.
priority. We got a lot of P's today. You want to add another one in? You got another one?
I do. Persistence.
Persistence. I knew you had another one.
So the priority is to be persistent on our purpose and to not get into protection, provision, or prevention.
That's good. That's good.
That felt good to say.
That's good. You know, it's so easy to sit here and have a conversation on a podcast. And I don't think either of us are implying that this is easy, or that, there's some magic wand that just makes it happen all of a sudden. I think it's something that we're actively learning every day. And we're practicing. Practice, not the P. This is something you have to practice. You have to practice being in purpose. Practice being on purpose. Okay? Practice of being on purpose. Yeah, it's not an automatic. It's not a light bulb switch.
No, it's not. And awareness of it is the beginning of the journey with it. I'm still going to stick my head in a hole. I'm going to do it because it's my nature. I'm human. That's another thing. I got to let myself be human. And when I'm aware of all of this, of where my place is, there's number 8, in my purpose, I become aware of when I stick my head in a hole a lot faster. And
The stick
I give myself grace.
Absolutely. The sticking your head in the hole might be sticking your foot in your mouth. It could be a
Yes,
number
ma'am.
of things, whatever the sticking your head in the hole is for you. Whatever counterintuitive behavior that you're doing on any given day. I know what mine are, you know what yours are.
Oh, well,
Whatever that might be.
I wanna list some for a second. Uh,
Sure. Transparent moment. Let's get it.
yes, complicating things when I think I have to do extra. Uh, the words that come out of my mouth. I might say something if I'm in fear, anger, any of that. The things that come out of my mouth usually aren't the best choice of words. Uh, yeah, I just went blank. That's
Oh, I
another.
got one. Avoidance. The literal sense
Oh,
of sticking your head in the
yes.
hole.
Yes. La 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 la.
It's not happening. I'm gonna pretend like this isn't happening. I'm gonna ignore this and this is gonna go away. Today is
Yes.
Thursday. By Saturday, it won't be an issue. People will forget and we'll move on. No,
Yes.
that doesn't work.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Doesn't work. Oh man,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be, oh, I cussed out somebody at the grocery store. It doesn't have to be something horribly egregious. It could be. It could be the things that we do and make excuses for that aren't as big as other things, you know? You know what they are. I know
I
what they are.
yeah. Another thing could be being stingy
With your time, with your gifts, with your resources.
with your
What are you
attention,
talking about? Being stingy with your attention,
attention, with your money, with yeah, any resource, and with your time.
with your
Absolutely.
gifts.
Yes, please and thank you. Yes. Don't hide that light under a bushel.
You gotta let your light shine. So whatever it may be, however you're sticking your head in the hole, thank God for the oil
Yes.
that keeps my enemies away.
And that's the grace, that grace of seeing that you're being carried through things, that there are resources that are things that are happening around you that are outside of your orchestration for your good. And they're always there. And it's putting the glasses on to be able to see it, believing that it's true, and staying on purpose and letting the other stuff not be your focus.
Right, that's good. Prioritize your purpose.
Yes.
That's good. All right. Did we answer the question, Carrie?
I think we answered the question. Would you like to wrap us up?
Oh, it's so much. It's so much. This could have almost had a part two. There's so many things going through my head. I'll say this. I'll just make it personal. I find myself in situations that are very uncomfortable, and I won't go into detail. I find myself in situations that are uncomfortable where I'm thinking it's time for me to move on. It's time for me to move on because this would not feel this awful if this is where I was supposed to be. And I had to challenge myself and say, "That's who is that talking? Is that Ebony or is that me hearing from God? Because He never promised me comfort. He never said you'll know it's me if it's comfortable. Mm, can't find that scripture anywhere. So I had to challenge myself and realize that it takes more than just my comfort level or how I feel to discern if this is purpose. So I would encourage everyone to dig a little bit deeper, just a little bit deeper, but just a little bit beneath the surface. If you find yourself where I find myself all the time, in saying that it wouldn't feel this way if it was right. And I've heard people say that to me. If it was right, it wouldn't feel this way. Hmm. In what way is that? Because there are some things that are just uncomfortable sometimes, and you got to go through it. Persist, persist. the greater the reward, the greater the purpose, and sometimes the greater the discomfort persists. And that's helped me. That's not always the case. It's not a band-aid. It's not a blanket prescription for how to get through life. None of that stuff. But there are moments for me in my experience where I've known that part of the plan, the purpose for me was to persist in spite of the discomfort, in spite of the present feeling, and leave the provision and the protection of me throughout that uncomfortable space to God. And there has not been a time or a situation where He has not protected me and provided for me when I remained on the purpose. So I hope that encourages someone, because I have to remind myself of that sometimes when I forget, which is Thursday today. But let Him grace you through it. Let Him carry you through it, provide for you. He is the protector. He will provide. You stay where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. I got one last thing, and I got a dog barking, so excuse
Buster.
me. Yes, that's Buster.
Buster wants to talk about protection and provision.
I think he's trying to protect the house as a herd dog. So
that's his purpose.
Exactly. That when I'm on purpose, I'm growing, and growth is uncomfortable. So
Yes,
often I will say to clients that resistance is uncomfortable. If you're growing, if you're on purpose, you're in that, the resistance is in proportion to your purpose. So if you are meeting with a lot of resistance, often it means you're right on track.
What's that thing you say? I've heard you say it. Divine discontent?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one.
Thing. It's a thing. So guys, tell us what you think. What are your thoughts? Feel free to disagree. Love to know what you think about it. How does purpose make you feel? How do you connect with it? How do you react when you're just miserably uncomfortable, but you think you're in the right place? What next?
Yes.
Persist. That's what's next. Persist.
Well, Ebony, again, thank you. This has been good. We got 8 P's out of it. I think there probably is a part 2.
What are the P's?
Purpose. Protection.
Provision.
Prevention. Persistence. Priority.
There was one more. Oh, I can't think of it.
Well, if you guys think of it, put it in the comments. That's the test for the day.
Or if you think of other great P's, let us know. Yes. We'll put them in our little word map with all the P's relating to grace. Okay?
All right.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, too. All right. Grace out.
Grace out.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. We love to hear from you, and share it with a friend. Also, please be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. We hope you're leaving with another pointer to grace, a new perspective that will light it up in your own life. Until next time, be well, be bold, be kind to yourself, and be on the lookout.